Welcome back to another episode of The Works Live. This is Jim.
I'm Diane.
And has anybody been keeping track of the fogs? We talked about this in the weather folklore episode. We're not using beans, we're using M&Ms, right?
Well, yeah, it's what we had on hand, the miniature M&Ms and regular M&Ms.
So just a quick, if you're playing along with us at home, for every morning you wake up in August with fog, you put a bean
or an M&M.
Or an M&M.
Yeah.
Well, and the size matters. So if it's a little fog, light fog, you put a smaller bean in or a smaller M&M. And if it's a more dense fog, you put a bigger one in. And then the folklore is that when you receive your first snow, and the snows are signified by whether it's a light dusting where you can see an animal's tracks in the snow, that would be you take a small bean away. And for anything larger than that, big snowstorm, you would take a big bean away. So basically it's a way of predicting how many snows are left before you should plant your crops. That's the folklore behind, and it's actually clever because at first, at least my observation, we had, like I said, we have 5 beans in there now.
Right, 3 small and 2 big.
And 4 of those came in the first 4 days. So It's like all of a sudden you turn into August, and truly the weather changed. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still blazingly hot.
Beastly hot. But when you said that there would be fog, I'm like, yeah, right.
But
I guess
sure
maybe
shit.
That's why we don't get any snow. And then, sure enough.
Sure shit. And, well, and to segue into the idea that recently, I don't know what government faction or if it's just the Weather Service, they talked about how the average temperature in the lower 48 states reached an all-time high, the highest since the Dust Bowl in 1936. So July, on average, was 76.8 degrees. And, of course, I'm first thinking, whoop-de-doo. We all knew it was hot, right? Part of the problem that I have with this, though, not that I'm a math genius or whiz, but this is based on averages. And the amount of temperature recording equipment has significantly changed since the Dust Bowl. As a matter of fact, the Global Historical Climatology Network is where these numbers come from. And there are 25,000 stations that record temperature all over the world, 180 countries.
Okay.
And you're thinking 25,000, that's a good number. So you'd get a good average, right, statistically.
In the entire world, then that doesn't seem like that many.
Well, okay. So I guess
how many do we have in the United
States? Well, that's just it. The propensity of the largest number of them occur here in the United States. We have more machines than any other country. As a matter of fact, my whole point with averages, and the reason they suck, is they don't tell you the whole picture. There's only like 3 machines recording temperature in Antarctica. So it's not fair to say in the U.S. when the entire country is experiencing 95-degree weather, and then you throw a couple of -10s from Antarctica, it's not going to work. That average is not going to mean anything.
Right, you need to toss out the high and the low.
Well, even if you did a mean.
Yeah.
Even if you did. My point, and so part of this is, and this is kind of interesting, so I did a little research. Abe Lincoln, which we have a fascinating story about Abe Lincoln and the fact that we recently went to Bostic, North Carolina, and there's a small place around Bostic that claims to be the birthplace of Abe Lincoln.
Well, yeah, you saw a historical marker, so it's got to be true.
Well, sure. But you look into that story, and I won't ruin it. We'll talk about that in another episode. But Abe Lincoln was one of the first. He was enamored with weather. So back in the 1776, he was the first one to start recording temperatures in Philadelphia. As a matter of fact, he was the first one to have actually a thermometer and a barometer here in the U.S. So, again, going back to how data is recorded, used for historical significance, like an average high temperature, it started all the way back then, which is again, amazing to think about. We've got records from then.
Right.
But in the United States for that year and for the first 4 years, Abe was the only one recording weather data at Monticello, and he did it pretty much every day. Not every day. Sometimes he'd forget, but he would record that, and that's part of what makes up today's
Right.
data statistical averages. But
if you think about how many locations they were recording, because we have very diverse climate here, depending on where you are, since our country is so big. For those of you that are listening outside of this country,
but it even goes for it goes for those countries too. If they're reporting any sort of statistical averages with this data that is collected by over 25,000 units, people.
Right.
Well, now of course most of it's electronic.
But how do you average when you have varying climates in our country? You don't want to average them.
Well,
I think you would.
That's what makes it sensational.
Yeah.
Let's face it. If you wouldn't record this, if I don't know if the statistic for that month was it rained more, because we're lots of places here in North Carolina have experienced drought this year,
extreme drought.
Right. But we've also had significant amounts of rain. And anyway, my point in bringing this up is when you have the word average in any headline, I don't take it for a grain of salt, because it to me doesn't really tell the whole story. And what I didn't realize too, like I said, looking into this, is of those 25,000 things that collect data, most of them again are electronic now, so you don't have to worry about poor, Betsy, who's a little senile and forgets to write things down for 3 days, like Abe Lincoln did when he first started this. But that average, it to me doesn't seem, you can't declare the world's getting warmer when you only have X number of stations in Antarctica recording temperatures, compared to more of them are here and it's hotter here. Is that truly a fair average? I don't think so. That's my only point. Boy, you can drop a pin.
Right.
You have no opinion.
No,
I
was just going to say that on a previous podcast we had talked about how throughout the last 100 years that I read articles out loud where the newspapers were claiming we're on the next ice age. No, but it's warming. No, it's cooling. And it's like every 20 years it changed. So, yeah.
Well, again, that's an average, right? So you can read into it.
Right.
So anyway, I get off that soapbox. Again, I just thought that was interesting. And I didn't realize too, part of that network of 25,000 are, if you as an individual register your unit, you could be part of that statistical average. Now, what flames me up a bit is being a bit of a weather, aficionado. You can't officially have a thermometer recording device of temperature unless it's positioned properly in something that's shaded.
Right.
And
because if they're not coming for a house visit to verify that you have it in a good location,
your number could be completely off.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. And I guess my other point is we went from that mercury filled bulb to something digital. So let's face it,
you have to
accuracy.
You have to calibrate the digital ones. How often are you calibrating?
And exactly,
what's the standard?
Right. And who calibrated it?
Right.
Is it dead on balls accurate? I don't know. So we always talk about, and we certainly appreciate everyone who subscribes, likes, comments on anything that we do, good or bad. And I bring this up again because I went down this rabbit hole about the algorithm, and maybe this will help explain how we can become that's not a viral hit, but maybe make a bigger impact than we have. We experienced about a month ago a rapid increase in the number of listeners that we would on average get across all platforms. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but we've kind of expanded into RSS. There's a whole bunch of other places to go, and that's something we're still trying to get our handle on, and the best platform in which to put the podcast. And yes, we need to do video. That's coming up. But the algorithm, and in particular the algorithm that moves things in your quote suggested view list or listen
or
list
feed or whatever.
Right. So what was interesting, I went down the rabbit hole and wanting to explain I guess to myself at least, help understand when we ask for a like, when we ask for a subscription, and how does that necessarily work? Because everyone talks about the algorithm. And
Right.
I guess I wanted to share with everyone is that, do we all know what that means? So I did a little research. The algorithm, and the reason that people on this side, the creators say, hey, can you like us? Can you subscribe? Is that the algorithm takes into consideration, there's 3 phases to it, if you will. There's the suggestive phase, the browser phase, that in that first phase, there are 3 statistics that go into how to build this algorithm, how to push your stuff, and whether it's a podcast, whether it's a video on YouTube.
How to do it organically.
Well, and that's just
because there's still wink, wink, you can pay.
So, well, that's where this kind of, from my perspective, makes me a little upset, because you can game the algorithm. I know I've made that comment before, but so to truly understand the algorithm, one, what it does is on your channel or on your content, the algorithm will look at all of those that watched or listened to your content that are our subscribers. And as soon as a new thing comes out, so a new piece of content comes out, those that are subscribers are the first ones to see it in their feed, which kind of makes sense to me, right?
Right, because you're subscribing.
You're
you
subscribing,
expect to see it.
Why not?
That's what you expect.
It's kind of like in the old days what a subscription was all about. You'd subscribe to a magazine, and sure enough, it shows up every month.
Yeah, you didn't have to go out to buy it. It showed up at your door.
It is presented to you. But what the algorithm likes to do to help understand, and this is the funny part, the reason they say the algorithm exists, because again, it knows better than us, is that it wants to understand who your audience is. Now, I personally think I know who our audience is, because I know who it isn't. It's not a 15-year-old.
Right.
They won't give a shit about what we talk about. It's certainly somebody that's our age, Gen X, same sort of interests in life, right? That's. But anyway, the algorithm wants to figure out what's best for us. So the first thing it does is it pushes that content to those that have subscribed, and or those that are regular listeners but don't necessarily subscribe. So here's and this is the part that I want to, in particular, I guess, reiterate that it's counting all this shit. So, as much as you want to be, and, as much as I want to not necessarily be off the grid, but I don't want this thing making this impression upon the things that I necessarily watch, because my tastes change over time.
Right.
But anyway, so working with the current topic algorithm. So it first looks for, and it sends that content. Hey, by the way, there's a new episode of this. And for those that subscribe and or regular listeners, they get it first. And those, like I said, non-subscribers, but regular listeners. And then what it does is it looks at the history of those two groups and then randomly picks X number of those others that aren't anywhere associated with the channel or the content or the subscription, but the similar likes of those that subscribe, and will push it to them. Based on that, here's the first round. So all those that subscribe or don't subscribe, all those that are familiar with the channel or not familiar with the channel, there's a period of time that the algorithm sits and waits and looks for, and what they refer to as the click-through ratio and the impression ratio. So of those that get it, are you listening or watching it? And if so, how long?
Right.
Because all that makes it. Those are important facts. Those are important statistics in this algorithm's world, because once that happens, it now has this more narrow vision of what it thinks is your audience. And so on those other, if you will, pages, if you're looking something up, like, hey, I want to go on vacation, Airbnb this, or, I try to give an example of something. We've talked about Airbnb.
Mm-hmm. So
if somebody tries to look something up on Airbnb, then based on, again, this click-through ratio, it's got to be pretty high. It's got to be, the duration of listens. Then it will start, in a way, advertising your feed to those that are looking for things that are similar to what we've talked about. Again, I think that's clever,
mm-hmm.
However, doesn't that do a disservice to those that maybe aren't, one, savvy enough with the metadata to help promote? I mean, how is the
Right.
algorithm doing this? First of all, I know that there are transcripts available, and AI supposedly does that. But if it's not for the metadata that you're associating with your content, how will it know that we talked about Airbnb this time? Or how, again,
Because of the transcripts, it's all AI driven. They can search that. They
Sure.
can search the transcript to find out.
and so when we talk about the algorithm, hopefully that gave you a better sense of what it does. For me, it did. I had, we hear on our side, we look at these things like, again, number of listens from where we were amazed that that Vietnam there were thousands of folks listening in Vietnam. I had no idea why, nor can I speak Vietnam.
Vietnamese, yeah.
I don't. So speaking of technology, of course, I'm not saying that Bill Gates was one of the first, but Bill Gates' daughter, Phoebe Gates, may be in trouble.
What did she do?
Well, she's associated with a company called PIA, or FIA. It's PHIA, which stands for Personal Shopping Assistant, or at least that's the name of the company is PIA, and it's basically this personal assistant extension that you can
like
add
a
onto
Chrome,
your browser.
a
Yes.
Chrome extension,
Or any Chrome, or again, dating myself, what is it called? Edge, or those that do Safari, or whatever web browser that you have there. They sell this extension. Well, they don't sell.
Oh, is that like the Shopify extension will let you know if there are coupons available for that site?
Correct. So apparently Phoebe Gates and her partner in the business, Sean Hogan, I don't know if Sean's a girl or a guy, it doesn't really matter.
Know.
But they've started this company several years ago, but now are being looked at because of what they call cookie stuffing, or stuffing cookies. Or I made the cute reference of CookieGate. Is it a gate? CookieGate. But they're stuffing cookies is what they're being accused of. And of course,
See,
that got my
stomach
attention.
just growled because I'm thinking.
Well, that got my attention because, yes, I love cookies, but it has nothing to do with those that you can get at Crumble or Insomnia. It's your internet
browsing cookies. Yeah.
Yes. And stuffing cookies. Again, I thought maybe this was an eating contest where someone's eating a bunch of cookies. That interested
piqued my
me.
interest.
Well, sure. And see, this is what kind of shit this shit would screw up an algorithm all day long. Because, I start going down the path of cookies.
Oreo double stuffed cookies. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anywho.
So their company, being this personal shopping assistant, and the world of these extensions like Shopify, hell, it was like, when Google first came out, we all thought, how the hell is Google going to make any money? Right? I mean, because they're offering this free
search engine,
but the reality is we all know how they make their money. But so they have this extension that if you're shopped and you bought these types of clothes, it probably remembers that. Again, there's an algorithm behind it that says, hey, you might be interested in this, or this. The problem that apparently, and Phoebe Gates doesn't know about it, or at least she may be in trouble. She's not aware that her partner at the business, this Hogan person, who also coincidentally went to jail for cookie stuffing back in 2014. You would have thought that maybe they would have interviewed each other or had something, but she was part of cookie stuffing this whole issue with eBay back in 2014.
So it's
cookie stuffing is this idea of, if you go search on, hey, I'm interested in wireless, what's that? We were talking about this the other day, for not to get too personal. So you want that new Cupshe outfit, right? So you search on that, or you look for a coupon for that, or you found something that took you from wherever it was
over to them.
Cupshe. Part of what these add-ons do is that they get commission for directing a
traffic
sale
to them,
to that website. Apparently, what this PIA company does is that they were running in the background because it's an extension, and even if it wasn't their website or their service that brought you to that commission, brought you to the place that you spent your money.
Yeah.
They were tagging their own URLs into it to make it artificially look like they were the ones.
So that's dirty dog.
They're basically stealing everyone else's commissions through what they call cookie stuffing. And ultimately found guilty. Gates could go 20 years to prison.
Wow.
Federal.
Is Dad going to buy
Pound me
her
in the
way
ass
out?
prison.
Yeah.
What movie is that from? Federal Pound Me in the Ass Prison.
I don't know.
Office Space. Remember when they were
that's
afraid
right.
about
That's
the
right. They just did a commercial with them out in the field.
What? Doing
From
what?
Office Space. The guy is narrating and has two people out there beating up a printer.
Really?
He said there's no need to beat up the printer because...
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen
They're
that
bringing
one.
everything back.
Yes. So yeah, that's though, and
Cookie
again,
stuffing.
when I say Gates, it's Phoebe Gates.
Phoebe.
It's Bill's daughter, which then brings me to I think what's been interesting is lately in the news there hasn't been a lot of talk about the cyber attacks that have happened against municipalities' water systems here in this country.
Yeah.
You haven't it
hasn't been in the news. You have to search for it. It didn't show up in my algorithm.
Well, it's been on Drudge, but no one's really talking about it. And I guess what upsets me is that this notion that, because we had this, and this goes back to any other attack on the country. You know, there was maybe not as much talk back in 9/11 and the things that people could do to our infrastructure. There's only recently been this idea of something from a cyber perspective causing disarray, right? If you could, was
mayhem.
it a couple of years ago?
The electric grid,
the natural gas
line, yeah,
gas grid was infiltrated. And ultimately there they discovered it was again someone had the password, you know, a one and a bang because you had to have the exclamation point.
Yeah,
but
and they couldn't turn it on because it was all automated. It's not physical. It's not analog.
And so that's what brings me to this. So now, even though the hackers have infiltrated some big cities' water systems, they haven't done anything nefarious other than screwing with the pressure. But the things that they could do, such as maybe, you know, turn this switch on that says, hey, look, this water that needs to go through the treatment, the sewage water.
The gray water.
Maybe that's already been done. My point in all this is, again, it's exposing the infrastructure that we have in this country. And in particular, it's funny, the FBI has phenomenal information on the website, probably too much information to probably helping the hackers. But at issue is all of these municipalities' water systems have a couple things in common. They run on these Rockwell automated Allen Brady Micrologic 1001, 1400 series chips. And these systems have been
They've been around for a while.
And not only that, but they've been sunsetted forever. So, you know, there's new versions of this software, new versions of that. Long story short, and you and I were pontificating over this earlier, but, you know, maybe somewhere 20 years ago wrote some code in those chips to allow them to get into the back door of these systems, you know,
right,
years and years ago.
especially if we're not building the chips here.
We're not, well, you can't. You have to buy them on eBay or, you know, you have to scrounge for them because, again, none of the hardware is physically available for this system. The software is completely outdated. And the point is that here is yet another, quote, natural disaster that we don't think is a natural disaster. The fact that our water system could be screwed up, you know, makes me thankful that we're on a well system. We have our own now. There's some
septic and well. It's work, but
certainly disadvantages to that if, you know, since you got to maintain it yourself. But, you know, you feel helpless that, you know,
because of software or hardware.
Of software that just because of the convenience of these controls that you can use over the internet to monitor the systems, because again there's a reason for it.
AI can monitor it. You don't need somebody to turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah. So what these hackers have been doing is going in and changing the IP address, exposing them, doing silly things like turning the water pressure down just to prove that they've been able to do it, which again to me is somewhat scary if you think about it. And which leads me to my last topic. We were recently visiting, went to Winston-Salem for another minor league baseball game, in which we ran into an individual that was talking about conspiracies, and because we were talking, who doesn't talk about conspiracies, right? And actually, I was shocked at us thinking about it. It wasn't like we were sitting there at the bar drinking, and then, started to get on the topic of conspiracy theories. This was like 8:00 in the morning.
Over coffee.
Over coffee. Clever enough gentleman, smart, and he had brought up, hey, did you ever hear about the Carrington incident or the Carrington event in 1859? And here's the connection. All has to do with the electrical grid. Now, of course, what electrical grid did we have back in 1859? Telegraph. And apparently the Carrington event was a name given to a geomagnetic storm, which
solar flare.
We have those all the time. But this one was so dramatically large that it affected the telegraph system, whereas the guys and gals that were doing the tap, tap, tap on the telegraph, they experienced for 2 days. Sometimes they would get shocked because there was such a charge of electromagnetic energy in the atmosphere from the solar arrays that were, being spewed from the sun, which then led us to the study of, and this guy Carrington was the individual who noted that these solar systems, these solar cycles go in 11-year events. Basically, every 11 years, they kind of cycle up, they cycle down. And so, my point is that this is also something that I don't think anyone's
for disaster recovery. No,
we screwed it up with the pandemic. We couldn't take any note from history on how to deal with the pandemic. We decided that we knew best and did not didn't plan for it as a disaster that it was. And here, a solar event like this could, and according to, and there's been studies that if we had that same level of event happen today, what it would do to these transistors, transformers that
everything
that
electronic
house, that basically control. Let's face it, we're the cloud. These data centers are all. It would take 4 to 8 years to repair all of that if that sort of event from 1859 happened today.
Well, in the serious part isn't just that you don't have a cell phone to use, but it fries electrical systems. So your cars won't work, computers won't work. So not only can you not regulate your water, your food and drug infrastructure of getting things across country to feed communities, that would be all affected.
Absolutely.
So
that's a huge disaster.
I had read, and that's what I was talking to this guy about, the book called 1 Second After by, what's his name? William R. Forstchen. And that book it's fiction, but because of that book, that started the whole PrEP movement. And what he talks about is exactly what I just said. The drug infrastructure. He had a daughter that was type 1 diabetic, and you can't move. You can't move drugs, and so what happens to a community? The drugstores get hit first. What do you do for food? And you have to take care of your own community. You want to keep other people out, and it was set in North Carolina, which was fascinating. But yeah. And it isn't so far-fetched once we read that we actually had a solar flare that could do something like this, let alone if it was in the book, it was a electromagnetic pulse that somebody had done. But,
and the thing, that's intentional, but with this Carrington effect or the solar flare itself and the activity, it's not super predictable. I mean, yes, there's a cycle to it. And if you recall, we had a pretty decent one. They said what was like a level 5. Now, I don't know that with this Carrington, this storm that happened in 1859, it was so off the charts they really don't have a number for it. But since then, they've developed these numbers that the G5 storm that we had in May of 2024, we all might remember that more for the fact that you could see the northern lights like I mean,
in
down
North
to Florida.
Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and that was one of the things with the Carrington effect, or that particular storm. Apparently, there were, recordings of and sightings of red skies for days. Like Hawaii was seeing the northern lights, but they were seeing the red version, which of course is, I guess, very rare. You don't see that unless you're up in the northern hemisphere,
Right.
And
Ours
again,
was the green.
and we were getting the green northern lights down here in North Carolina in 2024. But again, that's one of the side effects, and that's of course, obviously, I should say, obviously, that's the thing that's screwing up with the with all the electrons charging the atmosphere. If you've got telegraph wires that are carrying electricity in the open, that's how that got screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
In essence, affected. Of course, any big transformer systems that we have in this country are physically outside, and that additional surge of energy will affect them. And we don't have a way of undoing that, if you will. And part of it is you don't have a way of necessarily predicting. We know when there's going to be activity. I guess maybe you turn everything off. It's like when there's an electrical storm, you turn everything off so you don't blow up your electronics in your house. Maybe that's what we have to do. But, that's the... That was interesting. I had never even heard of.
Yeah, I had never heard. I was amazed.
So yeah, see again, it's we have to get more into again back to knowing your audience. I think conspiracy theories in general, whether they're far fetched, and it's not, again they're conspiracy theories. It's fun to talk about.
Right. Some of it is research. Some of it is fringe.
Certainly, but
you don't know until you start to go down.
What I hate to point out,
the deep dive.
The worst part of this is that, we're all supposed to have learned from history, but none of us seem to be willing to do that.
Right.
We have examples of all this stuff happening before, and yet we don't want to take the hint. So until next time, this is Jim.
I'm Diane.
And you've been listening to another episode of The Works Live.